2 teams to go in my road to predict all 131 teams this college football offseason. Guys, we're so close to the end. I only got 2 teams left. We're moving on to the UAB Blazers. Going to be one of the better teams in Conference USA this upcoming year. Now let me explain why. UAB is a team coming into this year that had a pretty good season last year, and ever since they have brought their football program back, I believe 2016, 2017, somewhere around there, they've been fantastic. They've been one of the better winning percentage teams over that mine. I think slightly over 600, somewhere around there. But this has been a really good team since they brought their football program back, and they should be yet another good team in 2022. Can this team win the conference this upcoming year, or will UAB even miss out on the conference championship? What's up, Tailgaters? My name is Tailgate Nate, and welcome to my channel. I'm predicting all 131 teams this college football offseason, which means, guys, I've probably already done your favorite team, unless your favorite team is UAB or one other team I still haven't done, UTSA. Hey, please hit the subscribe button, ring the bell. I do videos during the season as well. You can go through my channel and find your favorite team on playlist. And hey, for all you UAB Blazer fans out there, you guys are going to know this team a lot better than I do. So if you feel like I missed something, you want to add something, please feel free. Leave it in the comment section down below. I'd be more than happy to hear what you guys have to say. Let's talk about UAB in 2022, my second-ranked team in Conference USA coming into the 2022 college football season. Now, last year, this team was 9-4, 6-2 in conference, did just barely miss out in the conference championship game, but now this is a conference without divisions. And I think I think there's a pretty sizable gap between the number 1 team, who you probably know who it is by now, and UAB with the rest of this conference as well. So UAB last year, offensively, well, only 384 yards per game, 29 points per game. Nothing special offensively, but I mean, this was the best defense in Conference USA last year, hands down. 323 total yards per game allowed. That's it, with around 22.5 points per game allowed. Hey, really, really good stuff from UAB, and they even pulled off an upset against BYU in their bowl game, just the past game that they played. So UAB coming into the season, lots of expectations. This may very well end up being the best team in Conference USA as we take a look at what they're losing and what they're gaining. So there is a lot gone off this team. It starts out, we're going to start offensively as usual. Quarterback Tyler Johnston. He only had 408 yards, 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions. He kind of got replaced last year. So you are losing Tyler Johnston, what could have been a solid enough backup for this team, but you still lose a fairly key part to this offense from last year. Again, only 408 passing yards, but Johnston I do think is going to be a fairly sizable loss for this team. Lucius Stanley is a running back that's gone, had 213 yards and a touchdown for this team on the ground. And then you lose a couple wide receivers. In fact, you lose a pretty solid wide receiver in Ray J. Johnson, 394 yards and a touchdown last year. And then also A.J. Davis, who had 95 yards on 10 catches last season. A couple tight ends are gone. Hayden Pittman is gone, as well as starting tight end and second leading receiver last year, Garrett Prince, had 699 yards, 10 touchdowns, 36 catches. The touchdowns and catches both led the team. And he was only the second leading receiver by 4 yards. So you're going to be losing him along with a couple offensive linemen there as well. In the defensive side, well, Antonio Moultrie is going to be gone, as well as Microphone Stanley. Moultrie had 62 tackles, 2 sacks last year. Stanley, 34 tackles, 1.5 sacks last year. So you are losing some solid talent there. Tyree Turner, another defensive lineman, that is going to be gone. He had 3.5 sacks last year with 21 tackles. And then Alex Wright, a defensive line linebacker, edge rusher type player, who I believe led this team in sacks last year, had 6 of them, 45 tackles as well. Justin Thomas, another name that you'll see gone out of that linebacking group. In the defensive back group, you lose guys like Deshawn Turner, who was pretty solid for this team last year, 4 pass defended, 41 yards, and Troy Young, going to be another name that leaves this defensive backfield at 27 tackles a season ago. But when you look at this UAB team, there is a lot lost off that defensive side, especially that defensive line. But you know what? There's still a lot of solid talent here. Now let's look offensively. Dylan Hopkins, who came in last year to replace Tyler Johnson and was pretty solid for this UAB team. 2,274 yards, 18 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, but he had a 66% completion percentage. So while his stat line is not going to amaze you, he was very, very efficient in the playing time that he got. They're also bringing in a transfer in Jacob Zeno, who is coming into this program. I would expect that Dylan Hopkins ends up getting the start. Jacob Zeno going to play a little bit of a backup type role. So Dylan Hopkins, fully expect him to get the start coming into this season. And we'll see if he can improve that play. Maybe he gets more options to pass this upcoming season. Only threw 235 passes last year. It's the team that threw 286 times and ran the ball 513 times. So we'll see what happens with UAB this year. But speaking of rushing, hey, you get your 2 leading rushers back. Dwayne Mcbride, who on 204 attempts had 1,371 yards and 13 touchdowns. And then Jermaine Brown, who had 631 yards and 7 touchdowns as well. Jermaine Brown was also the team's 4th leading receiver with 200 yards. So returning a pair of running backs there. And in the wide receiver room, well, Trey Shropshire comes back. He was the leading receiver, again, only by 4 yards, but 27 catches, 703 yards, 7 touchdowns for him. You got some other guys like Ryan Davis, who's going to be there, Tejon Palmer. And then you're getting a transfer over in Dexter Boykin, who should be a solid option for you with the wide receiver position. On the defensive side, you got guys like Fish McWilliams, who, despite only 14 tackles last year, had 4 sacks a season ago. Kel Sanders is a defensive linebacker, edge rusher, combination type player. He was pretty solid for this team last season. So you get him coming back. Noah Wilder was your leading tackler last year, had 93 tackles, 1 pick, half a sack last year. Deshawn Oliver, another linebacker coming back, had 34 tackles, 2 sacks last year. In the defensive back group, man, there's a lot of talent in this defensive back group. Might be the best secondary in the conference. Damon Miller coming back, along with 3 guys that really just had some outstanding stat lines last year. Grayson Cash, 4 pass defended, 3 picks, and had a 100-yard pick 6 last year as well. Starling Thomas is coming back. He was really good. 8 pass defended, 2 picks. And then Keandre Swoops, who had 6 pass defended, 2 interceptions last season. So a lot of talent in the defensive backfield. Could very well be the best secondary in Conference USA. And this very well, yet again, could be the best defense within this conference as well. I think the offense is going to be fine with Hopkins at quarterback. Zeno, maybe if Hopkins doesn't work out, I think Zeno can come and play some solid minutes. You get the rushing stats back. Maybe some other guys besides Shropshire are going to have to step up for UAB this year. But this is an offense that should improve and a defense that may also still be the best in the conference. As we take a look at their schedule, not a whole lot of super tough non-conference games to start out with. You do have a home game against Alabama A&M that you should probably win. A home game against Georgia Southern that's a Georgia Southern program that's starting to try to get things moving in the right direction this year with Clay Helton coming in. They may need a couple years under him to really get things going. But then there are 2 non-conference games here that UAB does have to watch out for. Liberty on the road. I'll talk about a little bit more why Liberty could be a tricky game in a little bit. And then, of course, the one that stands out to everyone on the schedule, on the road to LSU, a program that is bringing Brian Kelly in, hopes to turn things around this season hopes to turn things around the season after a disappointing couple of years. In conference play, you have road games against Rice, Western Kentucky, FAU, and Louisiana Tech. Games at home against Middle Tennessee, Charlotte, UTSA, and North Texas. So diving in a little bit deeper the schedule, Alabama A&M should be a win. Georgia Southern, I'm figuring enough that probably may end up being a win for UAB there as well. But when you take a look at the Liberty game, the LSU game, I think is going to be hard for UAB to win. LSU does have a lot of talent on that team. Now, there are some question marks on that team, some holes that they need to fill in. How well does Brian Kelly fit in with this system? How well does the Brian Kelly system transfer over to LSU? But LSU definitely going to be the favorites there. UAB is going to give that Tigers team a fight, but more likely than not, I think they will come out on the losing end. Now, that game against Liberty, very interesting to me. Malik Willis is not going to be that starting quarterback for the Flames, but when you take a look, Charlie Brewer is, and if he can have a season like he did with Baylor in 2019, hey, that is going to be another solid Liberty team and definitely a threat to pull off some major wins this year. UAB, I'm giving the slight edge to as of right now because I don't know quite how well Charlie Brewer is going to look, but watch out for the Flames this upcoming season, all the Blazer fans out there. When you take a look in conference schedule, Again, there are some fairly simple games here. I mean, you play Wright, you play Middle Tennessee. Those should be wins. Even maybe Louisiana Tech should be wins. Charlotte, well, hey, I like that team, but UAB's definitely more talented. Western Kentucky, same thing, and Western Kentucky loses a lot of talent and some members of that coaching staff, most notably offensive coordinator Zach Kitley, who led that team to be one of the better offenses in the nation last year. Some really good offensive players leaving that team there as well. But the rest of the schedule, those 3 games before the LSU game, those are the games I think you got to watch out for. On the road to FAU. Now, FAU is going to improve their win total from last year. Could be a sneaky team to contend for the conference title. UTSA may very well be the best team in the conference for the 2nd straight year. They return a lot more back than a lot of people think. Yes, they lose Sincere McCormick, but a lot more comes back, and the North Texas is kind of my sleeper pick in this conference. And I think if there's a team that is really going to blow up this year, it may very well be North Texas. Now, I don't do game-by-game predictions. I do a more percentage-based outlook to help me predict the team's record. So if the game is in red, I just don't see a win in the game. If the game is in orange, I still don't see you winning, but it is college football and upsets can happen. Yellow are your 50-50 or high upset potential games. Games in yellow-green are games that you should win, but let's watch out for the team on the other side of the ball. In games in green, I do have you winning. So Alabama A&M is that game in green. I see you winning that. Moving on to the other end of the spectrum, I don't have any games in red for this team. I think this team is too good to be counted out of any single game they play this year. But that road game against LSU is in orange. And again, if you put the game in red, I'm not going to argue with you, but I think UAB is going to give LSU a fight this year. I do think LSU is the more talented team, and I do think the Tigers will end up winning that game. But UAB, I think, is going to give LSU quite the fight that upcoming year. I think that's going to be an interesting game to watch towards the end of the season. But getting into some other games, again, I've talked about why that road game at Liberty can be important. I'm favoring the Blazers in that game, but that I think is going to be, it's going to be an overlooked non-conference game, but a game that if you can watch it, you should definitely watch, because I think it's going to be a fantastic game between 2 teams that are going to be pretty good in the independent and group of 5 slate, especially if Charlie Brewer can get back to 2019 form. When you take a look in conference play, again, Rice, Middle Tennessee, Louisiana Tech, I think are going to be some easy conference wins for this team. Charlotte and Western Kentucky, I think, are both going to provide their respective challenges, but Charlotte's got to improve on the defensive side of the football. Western Kentucky has to do the same and replace a lot of offensive talent. They also play 13 games this year. So we'll see how both those games go, but I'm going to favor the Blazers in both of those early going. It's the 3 games before that LSU game that really intrigue me in conference schedule. Again, FAU, they're bringing back N'Kosi Perry, and a lot of transfers are coming over to that FAU team. That's an Owls team that's going to be dangerous in conference play this year and can pull off their fair share of upsets. And UAB has to go play that team on the road. So we'll see if the Owls can get it done or if the Blazers can survive there. UTSA. You get that game at home. That very well, besides the LSU game, maybe the Liberty game, may be your toughest game all season. UTSA's got a lot more coming back than a lot of people think. Yes, Sincere McCormick is a big name that is gone. There are some bigger names on the defense leaving as well, but UTSA returns a lot, especially offensively, to an offense that was really good last year. Again, overshadowed in the conference by Western Kentucky, but still a really good offense. And North Texas, as I've said, is my sleeper in the conference. They do lose DeAndre Torrey, but a lot of good pieces come back for that team. UAB overall, I feel like is going to be in that conversation for being the best team in this conference all year long. I think this team is still going to be really good defensively, and I do expect, even with some of the losses they're suffering, especially at the wide receiver position with Prince and Johnson, I think this is going to be one of the better teams in the conference, and I have them having a 10-win season. Fairly easy non-conference schedule apart from that LSU game. Again, Liberty may struggle this year without Malik Willis, some of their better playmakers, but I like this UAB team. I like what they got going, and I can see an 11-win season. This could end up being the breakout team in Conference USA this year. Not too far-fetched. I predict the Blazers may come up just short of that 11-win season, maybe picking up a loss in conference play along with a loss to LSU. But this is going to be a good Blazers team in 2022. There you go, my prediction for UAB. Guys, we got 1 team left. So like, comment, subscribe. Anything like that does help support the channel. And remember to play hard, but tailgate harder. I'll see all you guys in the next video. Goodbye.